Vince personally inducted the Undertaker in the Hall of Fame, and started crying. And I joked with my friend. I said, you know, the only person probably other than himself that Vince McMahon truly loves in the world is Mark Calloway, the Undertaker.
Yeah. I lay on the scale, you gotta glow, you gotta glow. She had my attention, she gotta know.
One, I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of the Let's Gather podcast. I'm your host Zeke, and in this episode I have Steve Casalinuovo to speak about teaching, podcasting, and wrestling. You can find more information about his podcast, the Heel and Face podcast, by clicking the link in the description below. I'll leave a content warning for any strong language used in this episode, and hope you have a nice day and enjoy the show. So, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Hi, it's nice to be here. This sounds like a really cool concept for a podcast, and I'm just happy to talk to people about anything.
Thank you for joining. So you can introduce yourself, and then we get into the questions.
Yeah, right. So my name is Steve Casalinuovo. I am originally from Akron, Ohio, but I live in Columbus now. I have been doing different things. I went to college at the Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, to become a educator, a high school English teacher. I've been teaching in a lot of different types of learning environments, from literal juvenile prison to urban setting. Now I'm in a Catholic school, and I've been doing that for almost 25 years now. But one thing I've always done is I've always been a huge fan of professional wrestling. And ever since about 7 or 8, when my grandma used to have it on before football started, I'd be watching it. My mom would get mad. And I kind of followed it all the way through the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, all the way up through now, all the independents and whatnot. And I had the opportunity to take classes at a local media school, and that's how I figured out about podcasting. And as a matter of fact, if I wasn't going to go into teaching, or had I known how big the internet, podcasting, and all that kind of stuff was going to take off, I would definitely have gone into sports broadcasting. Not that I don't love teaching, but it's kind of like, wow, if people only knew how big it was going to blow up, I probably would have chosen that instead. But other than that, I'm just here surviving. I've got great family and wife and a 10-year-old, and they both keep me busy, and it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And how I got hooked up with you was I just saw we're looking for people to converse with, people to talk about not necessarily the podcasts, but talk about life in general. And I just came across that, and here I am. So I have my own podcast called the Heel and Face podcast. It's a podcast dedicated to pro wrestling. I'm sure I'll be able to plug it a little bit more later. And that's kind of how I got into the podcasting game. So yeah, that's pretty much about it for right now. And then, we can get into details in a little bit.
Great. So would you say that's your origin story, or do you have like a fake origin story that you want to tell?
Actually, I was I was going to say, my real life story is actually a little more a little weirder than fiction. So growing up in Akron, I had kind of an average okay lifestyle, probably around 6-7 years old, and then all of a sudden my mom started getting really sick, and we weren't 100% sure why. And, it was one of those things where doctors would say, oh, it's this. And then they'd say, oh, this, and say, oh, it's this. And so long story short, about 10 years old, my mom passed away right around Easter time, as a matter of fact. And since then, been obviously trying to cope with that. It never goes away, no matter what people think. It's been almost 39 years or so since it's happened, and it still doesn't ever go away. And then growing up, my dad was, in a lot of grief and a lot of pain, and didn't want to talk to anybody about it because he's not really a talker anyway. And he got involved in some, with some shady people. Started drinking a little heavier than he used to. Just was hiding a lot of grief. Got hooked up with my with my stepmother, who treated me and my two other sisters pretty roughly, pretty horribly. A lot of mental and verbal abuse in the household. She wasn't able to physically abuse me per se, but I'm strong. I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me, and I have a strong suspicion that she was physically and verbally, mentally abusing her. So, and there's really nothing I could have done about it. So at 16, I moved out with a friend so I could finish my junior and senior years in high school, and and then from then on, I just, went on to college, and, just tried to be the best person I could be. And I ended up, that's kind of the beginning part of the origin story. I kind of ended up graduating college. So, I mean, that's a huge bonus, I think. And I'm glad I did. So.
Nice.
Thanks.
And after all of that, how would you like to represent it?
Well, as far as like putting it together, as an English teacher, my first inclination is like put it in a book. I've actually tried writing down my memoirs a couple of times in a book, and it just didn't feel right. I don't know if it was the timing or if it was just like me not having enough time or whatever, but I'm actually kind of embarrassed, believe it or not, talking about myself. I'm not the guy that kind of brags on himself too much. But now that I think about it, like, the way I would love to do it is somehow I'd love to represent myself as an NFT. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm like forward thinking. I'm a type of person that I look to the future. I don't look at the past much, and I like to progress. And if NFTs are going to kind of be the way of the future, I think it's a neat idea to like have something that is very exclusive that only a few people can see, but it's a lot of value. And I think that I would love to be represented somehow like that, even if it was like my memoirs kind of condensed in a file and digitally made, so only people, who really wanted to hear about my story could. I'm not saying like I'm some exclusive guy or whatever, but I feel like NFT is a great way to do it because you can access it like whenever you want, as long as you have the funds to do it, and it's yours forever. It's not going anywhere. So it's kind of like a book of the future, if you really want to put it like that. So I would definitely be interested in trying to represent myself somehow digitally, like an NFT or something like that.
Nice. Definitely makes sense. NFTs, there's something there. It's not there for common use yet, but there's something in the future.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind being an early adopter of that, because I know a lot of NFTs are just like, like reprinted pictures of monkeys doing like different poses or stuff like that, right? Like, and that's cool and that's fine for people that want to collect that kind of thing. But you can see some of the sports, like NBA is into NFTs right now. I don't know if you've noticed or if you're a sports fan or not. Like, there's a lot of different places that are way into NFTs that are doing that, and being an early adopter, means that, one, you're trying the technology out for future generations, but two, if it goes bad, then it goes bad. Then it's a flop, then it's a flop. It's like beta. I don't know, you're probably too young to remember beta discs or laser discs, but it was a big, it was kind of a flop. So we moved on. But if NFT is a success and people like them and people think it represents them well, then we should look into doing it, not just for art, but for a lot of other different mediums that we can. So yeah, I think it'd be a cool idea.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now we can get into the questions. So we'll just start with your teaching, and then we go from one to wrestling, and then podcasting.
Okay, shoot.
So how is it being a teacher?
Well, I personally I love it. I have been wanting to teach my entire life. Like I said, there was only two things that I really felt like I wanted to do. It was either be a teacher or do something in like sports broadcasting or sports journalism. And I really enjoy it. I know that teachers are under a lot of pressure lately, and there's crazy goings on. And quite honestly, I think that, and I don't know where you're from exactly, but like in the United States, I think what's happened is that we have gone too far into the social aspect of education, and haven't stayed in the realm of like just educating people education. And I think that's kind of controversial for me to say, because people, go crazy when I say it. But I really have a problem when people try to use school as like a social boiling pot. I hate when people want to experiment on their ideas on kids, and it really gets me ticked off. And it's just made our school systems just way too political, because on one hand, you have a lot of progressive people who are mostly teachers and administrators, who are allowing certain things to happen or fostering certain things to happen. But then you have school boards and you have parents groups and all these other people on the other side who are finding out, and they're complaining, and it's just making it go back and forth. And the only people that it hurts is like the students. Like it's never, it's never it's never the students that's ever really the problem when it comes to class. I've never had a problem. I've had more problems with administrators and with parents than I've had with the actual students themselves. And I feel like, if we, like, part of our problems, and part of the reason why, teachers are getting so dumped on, is because we're kind of obviously in the middle of all this, right? We're told to do one thing by our school board administrators and by our principals, and the other thing we get yelled at by parents, and it's just made just way too political. And I'd love to see a lot of it get out of it. And I'm sorry for that little rant there, but I just wanted to like let you know that it's kind of hard to be a teacher right now. And I know I don't want to be like a pity party, but it's kind of true. I've never been one of those people that was like the idea of, some people say, oh well, teachers have it so easy because they have breaks and all that, and we have time off in the summer. And it's not really like that, because many teachers actually work throughout the summer, not just like, on their real estate business or their roofing business or whatever. Like a lot of teachers, they actually do things for their classroom and for their students. There's a lot of teachers who will stay a couple of weeks after school's over in the summer and then come back a couple of weeks early to start prepping for the next year. There's a lot that teachers do put into the job that a lot of people don't see. And I think teachers do work really hard, and then they get kind of crapped on, I think, a lot too. Parents get angry at what's being taught, what lessons are being taught. Administrators are giving you this next new thing that has to be done. And if it isn't done yesterday, then you're not doing it right. You're going to get in trouble there, and blah, blah. And then having to deal with, students and their emotional states and all that. It's just there is a lot of pressure. But on the flip side, I will say that a lot of teachers bring it on themselves. And that's the controversial part, because this is the part that I'll say out loud to a lot of my colleagues, is a lot of teachers bring it on themselves. Like a lot of teachers will bring their own like political agendas into the classroom and push things on students that don't need to be pushed on students. And this is why we get the blowback from the parents, because the teacher does something in the room or says something in the room and then says that that's it, and my way is the highway. And then the kid goes home, obviously, to his parent and says what happens, and right, that makes sense. So then the parent comes back and says, why are you telling my son this? Why are you telling my daughter this? She came home all worried about this. And the teacher says, well, how dare you question me? So I think a lot of it is the pressure from outside, but I think a lot of it teachers do to themselves. And I kind of wish that teachers would stop being so political as well, in the classroom. I think your one job is to cultivate minds. Everything else is secondary. And I that sounds callous, and I know it sounds like, well, I don't care about their feelings. Of course I care about their feelings, but I also care the fact that they can add, subtract, write, read, speak comfortably, and like be competent citizens and human beings. So yeah, the emotional side of it is important, but the educational side, I mean, that's why you're there. The educational side's first. So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel. I mean, I love personally what I do in the classroom. I love it when a kid gets it. That's the best part. I've had a student, my favorite example is I had a 16-year-old freshman. So basically, a year away from graduating, should be, but he's still stuck in my freshman class. And, we're working with him and not giving up on him and all that stuff. At the end, we were reading a class novel. And at the end of the novel, he said, Mr. C, he said, this is the only book that I have read cover to cover without watching the movie, getting the study Spark Notes or Cliff Notes, or paying my girlfriend to read it for me. And, that's the best evaluation right there. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats that. I can, my principal can come in and she can say, you did this wrong, you did this right, you did this wrong, you did it right. I can get parents to come in and not be happy with something, blah, blah, blah. But the only success and the only joy that I get out of my room is when a student who is not is not scholastically minded, is not academically focused, can come to me and said, Mr. C, I made you you made me a better person by helping me through this thing we did. So that's kind of how I feel about teaching.
That's a lot to break down, but I definitely do.
I'm sorry, man. It was a lot to break down. Hey, I love podcasting for a reason.
I definitely do remember being in school and like a lot of things kept changing, and they kept changing how to teach math and then everything like that. Yeah. It was always like, granted, I just chose my preferred method and just went with it.
Well, that's, and that's another thing. We don't do that. We talk, sometimes teachers talk a big talk about it, but we really don't allow it to happen sometimes, because I think sometimes we're control freaks. So I think that if any way I can get you to do the thing you need to do, and it's not my way, it's not my comfortable way, but I can show you 3 or 4 different ways and you still get the right answer, I don't care. So, one student, prefers to take notes on a piece of notebook paper, or one student prefers to like have their own copy so they can highlight, with highlighter, and one student likes to listen to audiobooks. However you get that done, I don't care, as long as you get it done.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of teachers, most teachers hopefully take that, take that into consideration. At least I know I try to. So.
Because remember, like with math, like 3rd grade, they had like the original way, the old school way. Then they had something with boxes, and then another way. And I was like,
right,
old school way. I'm gonna just stick with that.
Yeah, and it works for you. And unfortunately, a lot of the problem is especially nowadays when teachers. I'll give you a little inside info. When teachers are being taught how to teach, sometimes the new way, or sometimes the way that all the experts say is the best way to do it, then that's it. And every teacher gets taught that way. And it's kind of unfortunate, because then, you get parents saying, I don't know how to do this, or why don't you just do it like this, like how we did it? It was simpler. And you discovered really early in 3rd grade that if you just did it how your parents did it, right, you'd gotten it right, versus like, the box and whistles and cross hashing and all that stuff. And I had the same thing with my son, and because my son really struggles with with letters and numbers. Like, he can do the operation, he can get it right, but he has slight dyslexia, so his numbers kind of get mixed up and stuff. So all I did was, he was and I'm not mad at his teacher for teaching him this way, but all we did was the traditional thing where we did the columns, and I separated the columns into ones, tens, and zeros and do it like that. And he got it right away. So, I'm not blaming or saying the way that his teacher did it was wrong, but I'm saying, yeah, like if you knew how to do it the way that came up with it, you should do it. And don't force a kid to like do it another different way if they're comfortable doing it with the way they are. I mean, it's a balance between stretching someone to do something that they haven't done before and breaking something that ain't broke. You know what I mean? Your way was obviously better, and you became a better student for it. You were able to do the things and get it right. So go with it,
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Nice. And definitely, because I have friends who are teachers, and I'm just like, a lot's going on with them too. I'm just like,
yeah, like, so where are you right now?
Brooklyn.
Okay. Wow. Oh man. That God bless all your friends who are in the with the NYP in New York, something.
Yeah, public education.
Yeah. You got, and they still do like schoolhouses still, right? Like Schoolhouse 78, Schoolhouse, or is that how it goes? Or, I don't know. I'll be honest. The only thing I know about the system is what I like watch on TV and shows and stuff. So what's it like there in Brooklyn?
It's just like the school system.
Yeah.
They have like the private, the Catholic, the charter schools, the public schools.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I forget.
Which one did you go to?
Public.
Okay. And which ones are your friends teaching?
I think it's charter. I have one's charter, I believe, and other one's like daycare, like early child development.
Yeah. Okay. Early education. That's cool. What charter school does your friend work for?
I do not remember at this moment.
Okay.
No, that things happen. I'm just like, have fun with that.
I'm sure they have the same problems that regular education schools. Yeah. I applied for a charter school. I actually was about ready to start working there, and it wasn't a good fit. So I went to this Catholic school instead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not actually teaching like traditional English. I'm a Title I tutor right now, but they're saying that if I stick with it long enough, I might be able to get back into the classroom. That's kind of what I want. That's kind of like my jam, right?
Yeah, I've worked with students before, and I'm just like, it's always like that. It's like fun, but also like always have to be cautious of everything.
Yeah. It is intimidating. What did you do?
Mainly like mentoring and like tutoring, and then like being like a teacher assistant and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Was it public, private?
College. Like mainly, I worked in my college, so anything doing that, and then work with high school students, do like a program.
Oh, cool. See, hopefully in college they kind of want to be there, so they're a little, you know what I mean, like a little ready, more able, more receptive to what you have to.
It depends.
Yeah, it
depends on the student, because sometimes if it's like during the summer or the winter, we both don't want to be there, but we both kind of have to like just push through what we're doing.
Right.
And then sometimes students, they still have like this. I like this like they once they get like an uncomfortable situation, they have like more self-destructive tendencies, and when you have to like fight past those, I'm like, okay, understand this is hard, and I'm always like, what's your goal? Is it goal to like just pass the class, and then all we gotta do is just get to that point. We don't have to go strive for the stars. All we gotta do is like meet your goal.
Right. And I've had a really love-hate relationship with that attitude, because me personally, I'm a person that loves learning. So it's hard for me sometimes to like not think that other people are like that. But at the same time too, whether you want to call it our system or our society, whatever you want to call it, all this confluence of ideas and issues come together, and basically it's kids just want to pass.
Yeah.
And that's not the best goal to have in school, but you can't hate for it, especially if it's the requirement, because I'm struggling with that right now with some of my kids being their tutor and trying to help them write their papers. I mean, I've got some kids in there, they are just knocking them out. Like some girls they're just knocking it out. This one boy is like on top of it. But then there's a lot of other kids that are just basically one boy cut and paste his outline as his final draft. I'm like, ugh. And he's like convinced that that's it. Like he's convinced he's just turning it in because he doesn't want to do it anymore. So I'm trying to express to him that copy and pasting your outline is not a paper. And, of course, he's like, that's all I'm going to do, and so despite being at Catholic school, this kid is like ready to drop out. He says, I'm going to drop out. I'm going to get my GED, and then I'm going to start working with my dad in landscaping or whatever, lawn care, and barring what conversations he's already had with his dad aside, like, I'm like, that's probably not a good idea, but, but he's so like convinced. And I think a lot of it is the pressure to get this done. Yeah. So he was given a paper. By the way, he's another kid who's like, and again, just because it's Catholic school doesn't mean that same kids have same issues. I think he's like 16, 17. He's like in a broken home and his parents are just, barely able to pay for his tuition, and he's going there and he doesn't want to be there. And, a lot of other issues going on. He shockingly, he doesn't have like the best academic skills either. So he's tired of being in school. He's tired of this class and he's tired of me. And he's just going to put this together because he doesn't want to do any more research. He doesn't want to write. He doesn't want to do any more research. He just wants to put his outline and just be done with it. And yeah, like he might get like a good grade on his outline, but he's not going to get it on a good grade on the paper. So trying to get him to that place. Yeah. So what school college did you tutor for?
Baruch College.
Baruch.
Oh,
Baruch.
Yeah, it's in a CUNY. It's in the city. New York has a CUNY system, which is a city system, and a city system, and a state system. So.
Okay, so CUNY and then SUNY.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Somewhat to the city system. It was cheaper.
Okay. That's cool. What subjects did you tutor most?
Mainly math. Sometimes depending like on public affairs or like psychology, anything in that nature. I'm better at math and science than writing and history. Okay.
Cool, man. Hey, somebody's got to teach math and it ain't me.
So now I guess we can transition to wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my origin story there is kind of funny too. So I don't like have a specific memory of wrestling, but growing up Italian, as you may know, so be aware from friends or whatever in New York. You go over, and on Sundays you go over to grandma's house for pasta. So that was our tradition. Like after church, about 10 o'clock or so, then we go right over to grandma's house and have pasta. And from having on Sundays having donuts for breakfast and pasta for lunch, you wonder why I'm 400 pounds. But we went over there, and my grandma would just have it on, and in the background, Wrestling Superstars, which was on USA before the WWE was the WWE, it was the WWF, and in the 80s, and it would just be it wouldn't be anything like it was now. It would just be like B-roll of matches that they wanted you to see. So they just basically, it's a half-hour show, or no, an hour show, and it was before, because grandma would have that on right before the Cleveland Browns on. So we do that, and then at 1 o'clock she'd switch over to football. So of course we'd come over and it'd be on, and my mom would be livid. Mom, why is that crap on? Stop watching this crap in front of the kids. And my grandma would say, I like it, it's staying on. So, my sister could kind of care less about it, but I was like glued. I was just like, shoveling in pasta and watching like Roddy Piper versus Hulk Hogan. I was just watching Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, put somebody to sleep, So I was hooked on like 80s WWE wrestling. And then from there, which was kind of like the bad part of my mom starting to get real sick, was that we'd spend a lot of time spending the night over at my grandma's house at night, grandma and grandpa's house. And then Saturday nights, after they got back from church, because they would always go on Saturdays at 4, and then they'd come home. And then 6:05 was when TBS and TNT, actually TNT wasn't a thing yet, but TBS, they would have Jim Crockett's promotion on at 6:05 from Atlanta, where you'd see Ric Flair, my favorite wrestler of all time, where you'd see the rest of the Four Horsemen: Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson. You would see Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, Magnum TA. All those guys would be on that one and at night. So I'd watch that one with grandpa at night, and then get up in the morning and then watch the WWE on Sundays if I was ever staying the night. So I mean, I kind of got hooked with wrestling from there. And despite my mom hating me watching it, I always followed through with it. Went to college, and that was the time. It was perfect timing, because when I was there, starting 93, 94, was when the whole Monday Night Wars were really starting to get ramped up. And I remember we had to, in our dorm room, we had to like fight between the men and the women, because it was a co-ed dorm room. So every other Monday it would be either Monday Night Raw or football, and then every other week it would be Friends, or not Friends, but like Beverly Hills 90210 or whatever was on Fox at the time, and he'd have to like flip back and forth between the men and the women living in the co-ed dorm. We used to have Raw parties all the time, watching it. I got to know a couple of people from watching it in a community, in the community area, in the common area. Good time. So that was like peak, like Hulk Hogan turning heel, going NWO versus Steve Austin, the anti-hero. And that was like pretty much the golden age of pro wrestling. Followed that all the way through. Started going to see Ring of Honor after ECW kind of split in half between CZW and Ring of Honor. I kind of went with Ring of Honor. It wasn't really all that interested in CZW. Or if you're familiar, Combat Zone Wrestling and Ring of Honor ROH. So kind of followed some of those guys. And when Ring of Honor would come into my neighborhood, like Chicago, we would always go to Chicago shows. When they went to Cleveland, I went a couple of times. So yeah, I kind of paid attention to them, but at the same time was watching. So it was like all throughout this time up till now is, I've always been a huge fan of pro wrestling. When I went to the media school in 2017, the Ohio Media School, and I was just kind of floundering around, like in between jobs. I was recently let go by Columbus unfairly, and looking for another teaching job. I took some of my retirement and went to the Ohio Media School to kind of work on how to, in case teaching doesn't work out and I have to get a job working at a radio station or anything, which that's not a bad thing, but I guess I might as well pursue my other thing I wanted to do if I wasn't going to be able to work on, be a teacher anymore. And that's how I learned podcasting. Got hooked up with a guy who originally owned my podcast, but he really wasn't. When he was about to graduate, he really wasn't feeling it anymore. And I decided, I drew up a basic contract, and I had both of us sign it. And I got it notarized, and I basically bought the rights to his Facebook page and all of his social media all the logos and all that for like $100. And I've been doing the Heel and Face podcast for about 2 years now. So
Nice.
yeah, that's kind of where that's gone.
Yeah, I remember wrestling early 2000s, 2010s. I remember it was like heavy into wrestling.
Yeah. So you were like the Ruthless Aggression era, like John Cena, Edge. Yep. So who's your favorite wrestlers from that era?
It was definitely like younger John Cena, Triple H. Definitely into the Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Like the TLC matches.
Yeah.
The tables, ladders, and chairs between them, the Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian. Some of the greatest matches of recent history.
And Stone Cold, definitely. He was definitely a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Yep. Kurt Angle. Good stuff. Yeah.
Mark Henry, definitely Undertaker's undoubtedly the legend.
Oh yeah.
He's the only person Vince would listen to besides family.
Right. Right. He considers himself he considers a brother, a friend, a son. I made a joke with my friend. I said the one person, because I don't know if you caught much of WrestleMania's Hall of Fame or anything like that this last like 2 weeks ago or whatever, but Vince personally inducted the Undertaker in the Hall of Fame and started crying, and I joked with my friend. I said, the only person probably other than himself that Vince McMahon truly loves in the world is Mark Calloway, the Undertaker. Yeah, like they've been through a lot, and it means a lot when and I don't know if you saw or if you're a fan of Pat McAfee, but the Pat McAfee show, and Vince McMahon said he was the only wrestler that I didn't have any doubts about whether or not he would jump to WCW. And he was still Vince was still doubting whether or not Shawn Michaels, even after he gave Michaels the belt in '97 with the famous Montreal screw job, still thought that Shawn Michaels would be one to jump to WCW and go into the NWO with his friends. But he never had doubt that the Undertaker would never leave. And Undertaker confirmed it. He said, I got one phone call once. I told him no thank you and hung it back up again. So like that is just crazy. That's just amazing loyalty and friendship in a business that's not loyal, and in with one guy, not the Undertaker, who's not been known to be the most scrupulous of businessmen over the past 40 years or so. So that's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. And now he can finally start being himself. He doesn't have to be the Undertaker in public.
Right. It's so weird. And he talked about how weird he felt too about it. But it's so weird, like being so even when everybody knew that wrestling was predicted and scripted and all that, he still would not go out in public as Mark. He'd go out as the Undertaker. And then when he finally decided to retire and give it up, now he's like the opposite. Now he's like, blah, 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 blah. I did this and my name is Mark, and I did this and I did that as the Undertaker, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of really weird to see that, but it's hilarious at the time. But I'm glad now that he's finally able to like enjoy all that hard work and sacrifice that he had to go through in order to become literally one of the best, most popular, most successful wrestlers of all time. So
definitely. I actually thought he was, but I was like, he's undead. And, like, I believe, like, even though I knew the story was fake, like, I knew wrestling was fake, I still believe the story. Like, him and Kane are brothers. And I was like, they're not, like, what?
Yeah, I was listening to Bruce Pritchard, one of the guys who kind of invented the story of the Undertaker along with Vincent, and they're right. I mean, you can hate on it all you want. Oh, it's hokey and it's pro wrestling, but it's probably one of the best, like, actual stories, most consistent, most like it was never bad. like The Undertaker never really had a bad eye rolling storyline. It came close with the Underfaker when they got prime time Brian Lee to be the fake Undertaker. That was close, but it wasn't. It's still everybody knew who the real Undertaker was. I don't think he's ever had a bad. Yeah, I don't think the Undertaker's ever had a bad gimmick or a bad. And when his character progressed, like when it matured and developed into something else, I mean, everything he did was like, yeah, I could see that. Like when he became, the big evil or the big red, you know what I mean? Um, you could go, okay, I can see the Undertaker being a biker. Makes sense to me, So he's very fortunate that his characters never really had a huge hiccup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then I have a friend who's in wrestling, like a small circuit, and I'm just like he continued with the dream behind middle school.
Oh, cool. What's his name?
Friend Marcos. I forgot what program he works with, but I had to hit him up with like, yo.
Cool. Well, if he ever wants to come on my podcast and talk wrestling or get himself promoted or whatever, he's more than welcome to. I like doing that. That's part of the fun of podcasting too. I don't get to do it that often because my show is really not built around that. But I always try to support independent wrestlers because I know how hard it is. And every once in a while, like I'll still go to independent shows. There's a couple of really good ones coming up in Ohio that I'm going to try to go to, especially in Columbus. So it's really close to me. But yeah, I like talking about independent guys as much as the big name guys. You said your friend's name was Marcos?
Yeah.
It's not Guerrero, is it?
Nah.
Okay, because all right, because I was a guy from New York, I think, that I follow, kind of. That's from the New York area, who's a indie pro wrestler too. So, but yeah, like I look at it like this. You know how baseball has a farm system, right? Hockey has a farm system. They're trying to make the G League and the NBA like a farm system, and now they're even considering in the NFL having some type of like super combine where you would just go like to a training camp or whatever, you know what I mean? Like a mega training camp. And then you could pick from those players. So the NFL's got some ideas. So all these sports leagues are doing farm style systems. And I kind of think like the independent wrestling scene is kind of like the farm system for the major promotions, for like WWE and AEW and not Ring of Honor anymore because they got bought by Tony Khan, but that's the way I see it. And I've seen a couple of guys, like I've seen plenty of guys. I saw Brian Danielson in Dayton way before he got in the WWE, and now he's in AEW. I saw Samoa Joe before most anybody else knew who he was. I saw Kyle O'Reilly. I saw Adam Page, Adam Cole. I saw a lot of these guys who were in WWE. Kevin Steen. I saw a lot of these guys about 15, 20 years ago in Dayton, in Columbus, in Indiana, in Chicago, in Cleveland, before they made the big time. And I looked and I said, that guy, he looks like a star and I'm going to follow him, or this guy's going to be huge, or this girl, she's going places. The one wrestler, and I love talking about this one, the one wrestler that I saw and I went, not that great, was a scrawny, skinny kid with jet black hair. His name was Tyler Black. And he ended up going down and getting a tryout for WWE. And he ended up becoming Seth Rollins. So out of all those guys, the one guy I was like, he might not make it. He might not make it in anything. And he becomes Seth Rollins. So, but that's the fun part of it, right? I mean, think about like, are you like a Yankees fan or a sports fan, anything like that? Mets fan, anything like that?
Definitely number one basketball, and then other sports I kind of just keep up with the news.
Yeah. So you know that the NBA's trying to do the G League, right?
Yeah.
And all that. All right. So okay, imagine you got there's a guy that you're kind of keeping your eye on in college or whatever, or he's really doing big things in the G League. So you go to catch a couple of games, like G League games. And then all of a sudden he gets that 10-day call up to the Nets. You're like, I remember that dude, right? Like, I remember that guy. Like, he was balling or whatever. Like, this one guy, I don't know, he's all over TikTok now. He's the point guard on OKC, and all he does is hook shots. Like, all he does, I don't know if you've seen him. All he does is like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook, and he got a 10-day, and he's like the most popular player now. Everybody is telling the Thunder to like sign him long term. But yeah, it's like you look at that guy and you're like, oh my gosh, I was watching that guy when he was in the G League and now he's on the roster. That's kind of the way I look at pro wrestling, right? If you have friends who are baseball fans, it's the same thing. It's like watching, the Yankees. So I always saw them. This guy who's really tearing the cover off the ball in Buffalo or something like that, and now he's going to get us started right center, and like, oh wow, that's cool. I know that guy. I saw that guy. I hope he, that's because that's the fun of it too, is that following your favorite. And then when they get there to where you thought they would be, that's like the best part. That's like kind of satisfying, So that's kind of how I see as pro wrestlers. And there's a few out there actually on the East Coast that are moving and getting a lot of play. Like the one guy in particular, his name is PB Smooth. He keeps it player. He's 6'9", about 320 or so, and just this giant dude. He's from the area. I think he said he was originally from like either Boston or New York. I can't remember which, but he went to school in Pennsylvania, and like now he's been on AEW. He's been getting different matches. He's been champion in different indies. So it's a lot of fun watching this dude. He's going to be a big star in a couple of years, and it's going to be fun seeing where he goes and gets signed to permanently next. So that's kind of the satisfaction of it's the most fun part, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And now with the podcast, how's that going?
So the podcast is going pretty well. So I don't have any pretense about it, right? It's a hobby. It's something that I like to do. I'm still working on the quote unquote 9-to-5 gimmick, right? Like my ultimate goal is still to become a full-time English teacher in a classroom, and all that entails. And that's what 7 to 3, right? That's my job, right? And I don't do like I do, I read and I walk the dog who's right now yelling at somebody. I do some different things, but like I don't have too many hobbies or vices. And the one thing I do in my spare time is watch wrestling and talk about it. So, am I looking to like have this thing blow up to like I don't know, Pat McAfee or Chris Jericho or Steve Austin podcast levels? No. There's a lot of people around, who are doing wrestling podcasts. I do it just because, again, it's fun. Like I do post the audio on Anchor, which posts it out to like 6 other places. I've made a total of $19. It's not bad. It's modest. I have 1,100 followers on Facebook. So again, not going through the roof, but it's a nice following enough. And I do other social media too. So I'm on Twitter. Got about 500 followers there. I'm trying to go to like locals and Minds and a lot of the other social media platforms as well, just to check it out there. Those are really slow going. But again, am I trying to retire and just do podcasts for the rest of my life? No, but it would be nice if I did. I did apply to a couple of different networks to try to move the podcast there, but it just didn't work out. And again, it's like I'm not fully given up on becoming a full-time teacher yet. So I don't want to just say, I wanted to be definitive. I want to cut it off. I'm like, okay, if I'm really going to try to make money off this podcast, then I have to, say this is going to be my 24/7 job, right? And I don't want it to be like that either. It would be nice if I could get paid a lot of money to talk wrestling and sports, and people will pay and people will respond and people will subscribe and all that, and I can get more listeners and more viewers and all that stuff, then God bless. That'd be great. I am nowhere near that right now, so I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay to just have it be a hobby, right? I'm okay for it just to be something to do where I can just talk to like chill people like you every once in a while, about it, and just kind of like, hey, just blow off some steam. It's a lot like talking to friends about wrestling and stuff. So I'm not trying to like reach for the stars. I'm not trying to be gimmicky, but if something happens and people like it and pick me up and start really paying me money to do it, I'm not going to turn that down either, if that makes any kind of sense.
Definitely.
How about you? How about your podcast?
So, like I said in different episodes, this I started to get a job.
Yeah.
In media.
Okay.
The first was animation, but then I switched it to like a more general podcast and now media. And then I achieved that. I got a job. And then right now I'm trying to redefine what I want from the podcast.
Okay, cool. And so like you would take this and just use this as the content, and then you'll upload it to whomever is. Oh, nice.
Wait, explain it fully, because I'm not sure if I understood what you said.
I said nice. I said
no,
so. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you? So this is your own self-published podcast, or you're working with? Okay. All right. Cool. What? Let's talk podcast then. What are your numbers like? Just out of curiosity.
They usually, on average, it is right now. It's still low. It is. So far, I have a total of 2,625 from just like audio alone. Okay. Average of 25 downloads per episode. Okay. All right. And then YouTube is a different animal.
Yeah.
So trying to figure that out.
I've shied away personally from wrestling podcasts on YouTube because there's a ton of there too. That's where it first got started. Mm-hmm. And the market's kind of saturated as far as pro wrestling podcasts on YouTube. But if I ever get into it enough, I might go open up my Restream account again, and then I'm just gonna like not just do YouTube, but I'll just broadcast like on all the different platforms at the same time. So whereas right now, just YouTube. What I do is I used to do Vimeo, but they were being, they have a limit on free content that you can post for, like, as far as like how many megabytes and stuff. So I mostly post my videos to Rumble now, and I go live on Facebook, and then I save the video and put it on Rumble. And now Anchor, you're supposed to be able to put video up too, but I don't know. I might look into that further. Yeah. I don't know how that would happen, but
because they have a partnership with Spotify, because Spotify is also adding video podcasting.
Oh, okay. Well, then I might check that out then. Yeah. So. And so do you work with Anchor / Spotify too, as far as the audio goes?
I use Red Circle. It's pretty much the same thing, a different alternative.
Okay.
And then pretty much same setup, just upload, and then I put it everywhere. Then I make sure I went to other directories and make sure it was there.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay. And now it's a very expensive hobby until I start making money.
But hey, that's what happens. You gotta spend the money a little bit to make money, and seems like you're going in the right direction. It seems like. So good luck with it, man.
Yeah. Cool, I guess. Now I just need to redefine I'm gonna start adding like Twitch and like gaming and stuff as like a side to like the channel.
Yeah.
Like other stuff for me to like do, because it take breaks in between seasons. So Give me something.
Yeah, I need to read up on. I got a Twitch account a long time ago, but that was just to like watch.
Yeah.
You're gonna laugh. It's just to watch like Mexican wrestling. but I haven't been on. I probably haven't accessed my. I probably deactivated my account since then. Probably been about 2 or 3 years. So they've. But I've been curious, and I've been joking with my son about putting together our own like Twitch channel, and naming it Steve Sucks at Video Games. And basically it would be me sucking at video games. People just watch, and if they want to like give me credits for encouragement, they can like it or put stars or whatever Twitch does, and pay me to like encourage me, like, hey, do this or hey, do that, so I won't suck at it anymore. But yeah, other than that, like haven't done too much with Twitch, but I know a lot of people are going to Twitch and Discord for their podcasts too. So something to think about, definitely.
Yeah. What the future holds, I don't know, but I know something's gonna happen.
Hey, just keep grinding at it. Something will happen. You're young enough yet. You got a lot of cool things going on with the podcast. Listening to a couple of episodes and stuff. I think you got something here, and just keep grinding. And you're way younger than me. You look about 20 years younger than me. I mean, by the time you get to be my age, you could probably have like 4 different podcasts, and you could be really, making something of it. And yeah, so my advice is just keep going forward, man. Keep learning, keep going forward with it. Network as much as you can with people. I know you said you did some stuff with media. Try to go back to those contacts. Try to have some.
No, I have a job in there. Like I work in radio podcast. I work in radio advertising.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. So where do you work in radio? Like what station?
I work at Google, so I work in the media, like the buying side of radio advertising. So
sales. That's the one thing.
It's not like the sales, like I work under the buyer, so the buyer talks to the client and then puts them onto the different stations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody on the other side giving advice to you, or heard your podcast, or talk? Have you pitched any ideas to somebody on the radio side?
No, I haven't. Some people do know, like I have one. They see it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So like I haven't really done much of that yet. They're still trying to like decide if I wanted to continue it or how I want to continue it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because when I was at the media school, they were pushing everybody hard to be in sales first. And I'm like, you do realize, so one, I'm not a salesperson. Two, like, I don't know if you realize that most of the kids that come here don't want to be, like, most of the people that went there, fresh out of high school, they just wanted to air, basically they just wanted airtime to like cut their terrible SoundCloud the songs, right? They just wanted to put beats down. And one day I was there, and they had to kick, like, it was on a Saturday, and they had to kick like 10 people out. They almost called the police, and I think they may have taken tuition away from 2 students. They like kicked them out, like expelled them from the school, because when came in, like the studio, there was like 10 empty vodka bottles in the studio. And it smelled like weed, and it was like, oh no, this is a school. What are you doing? So I think what it is, I think what it was, what they found out was people were just taking the tuition or whatever, and they were just buying like as much studio time as they wanted, as they could get away with being a student at the school. And then they just took whatever money was left over and just didn't pay. Like they just basically defaulted on the loan, stopped coming to school, and pocketed the money. And when they found that out, they just started like booting people out of the program. But yeah, they were always pushing us like to be in sales. I guess because that's the entry level position of any like radio and television station.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense. You don't. Somebody's got to make the advertisements, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to make the commercial breaks. But it just wasn't that's not my jam. Like if I was going to get into radio or television, it would be production, and then eventually getting on and being the personality. So, I mean, you should definitely just keep grinding, just perfect this, and then just keep bringing it to whomever on the other side, and just say, hey, I've been doing this for a minute. I've been cutting podcasts for a minute. If that's something that you'd be interested in, like, just keep doing what you do and see how it goes.
Yeah. It's like 4:06. I think we can end it there.
Yeah.
So last question is, what would you name your origin story?
Ooh, what would I name my origin story? Wow, that's a tough one. So there is a line from Hamlet where he says, I'm a man taken all from all. So probably something like taken all in all, which is kind of like my life story. Like, I'm here, take me for what I am and what I have and what I've been through. And that's basically me. So probably name it Taken All in All.
Nice.
Yeah.
And where can I find you, your podcast, and everything like that?
Oh, great. So you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Parler, Locals, and Minds. And you can find me at Heel and Face Pod, HEEL and FACE Pod. So if you Heel and Face Pod on all of wherever you want to go as far as social media. And I'm also on Spotify and all the other places that Anchor distributes to at Heel and Face Pod. So I just try to keep it simple. If you look for Heel and Face Podcast or Heel and Face, and you see a logo that has an angel wing and a devil wing with an H and an F, then that's where you can find me.
Nice. And I'd like to thank you again for joining the podcast.
Hey, thanks. It was my pleasure. This is a lot of fun. And again, just keep grinding and just doing what you're doing. And I think you're in the right direction. It was really nice meeting you, Ezekiel.
Thanks. That brings another episode of the Let's Gather podcast to a close. Again, you can find more information about the Heel and Face podcast by clicking the link in the description below. For next week, I have Adriana Gavazzoni to speak about being an attorney and an author. Hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you there.